Welcome to The Obvious, episode number 61. If you haven't heard episode 60, stop, go back and listen to episode 60 because this episode is a part two, our continuation of
Adam Swart, the CEO of Crowds on Demand. So we had a great conversation last week and continued, so much so that you're going to really enjoy, I think, this part two. Yeah.
But listen to episode 60 first if you have not heard it.
So we ask you, please, if you do love the show, to subscribe on all the major podcast platforms or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow The Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, True Social. All the links you need are in the show notes. So
enjoy the show.
Conversely, you guys out in Florida might be familiar. I don't know whether you've forgotten his name. A gentleman named Jeb Bush who ran. I know. I feel like people don't even know who he is anymore. But he was the governor of your state. I've heard. And he ran for president. I guess in 2016. It feels so long ago, but he raised like $200-300 million and basically got like no states whatsoever, no delegates, like 0%, 1% in the polls, right? So it just goes to show money can buy you recognition, but it can't buy you resonance.
Right. It's a great point. So you home base then is LA or California, where this concept.
Exactly. So I spent a lot of time in California, some time in Arizona, also Northern California as well. But our business is nationwide, and Florida is definitely one of our bigger markets.
Sure. Which you would expect, being the third largest state, I'm sure, right? Anyway, I love what I'm hearing, because the whole idea of it's more genuine what you're trying to do now as opposed to, right? And I think that matters to people. It's not just purchased for hire, guns or whatnot. You're now evolved perhaps to a business model where you're actually trying to just, again, be a catalyst to people already who have a vested interest one way or another and get them involved.
I don't want to be thought of as a dirty trickster.
Yeah, which I think is great. I think it's awesome. How is your trying to find those people? Does social media play a large role in that, or how has that evolved over the years?
Well, in terms of finding the people to participate, sometimes. So we obviously have a network as is, but in terms of if we have a really niche thing that we need and we don't have anybody in our network, we may reach out to people on social media. That is certainly one of the strategies that we do, and social media makes that easy. I think social media is generally a terrible thing for this country. I think if there's one thing liberals and conservatives can kind of agree on, the only person I've ever seen.
Do we agree on that?
Yeah. Social media is terrible.
Right. Social media is terrible. Yeah. So the comedian that we started the intro to also had a few choice things to say about social media. So
I think the only person I've ever seen defend social media is this whack job from the Washington Post named Taylor Lorenz. Not sure if you've ever heard of her.
She is a whack job.
She is a really nutty woman or whatever,
She wants to have Mangioni's babies, and she's totally fine with Charlie Kirk getting killed off or something, right? She defended.
I don't want to put words. I did not know that. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't want to put words in her mouth because there's enough crazy.
Allegedly.
You know that she said, but things. I know that she's defended social media, something along the lines of because like a transgender kid in like Georgia can like meet somebody online or something, like that was her justification. But but the rest of us all hate each other because of social media. So like that one kid might be able to find someone to talk to, maybe, but like generally the fact is that we are more divided than ever, and probably solely due to social media because social media sends us that rabbit hole.
I tend to agree with that. I just didn't know that was as widely accepted, on the left, because obviously, we still have it, and it seems to be growing in influence. I don't know, they
bought off our government on both sides. They in fairness, you have to look at TikTok with the Trump administration, right? He kept saying he was going to ban it. He never did, right? Trump, obviously, Twitter is sort of a Trump-friendly platform. I guess you could say that Instagram and Facebook historically has obviously been on the left, but now Zuckerberg's trying to cozy up to. The point is, it doesn't really matter. These companies now are trillion-dollar conglomerates. They're going to kiss ass to, sorry, I'm allowed to say that, on to whoever's in power. You can bleep that. But they're going to, when Joe Biden was president, the Facebook did everything that they were told by his administration, censoring conservatives, deplatforming them. Now they're doing the same thing for this administration. I think it's bad.
Your business is, you might use that, like you said, especially you have a niche where you're having to kind of start from scratch. You might use it to kind of identify people, but your business is not really.
I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree with you, Adam. I'm not aware of any left-wing voices that are being censored under this administration. So I would not say there's an equivalency to what they did under Biden versus now, especially on social media.
Did you say that? I missed that.
I think that if you look at platforms like Twitter/X, right, they definitely tend to push up conservative views that are in line with Elon Musk's views, right? Like, I'm not saying it's solely conservative, but his views tend to lean that way, right? And what I see maybe it's because this is the stuff that I will look at on Twitter,
right?
But when I rarely see left-wing content.
Are you getting those notices we got 2 years ago? blocked, suspended. And
I hate that. I hate any sort of deplatforming, right? I am someone who wants the government to keep its filthy hands out of Americans' business, and I don't care if it's filthy right or left wing. Is that when the government meddles? Like I disagree with. I mean, not to get too political. I don't shill for either party. Is I guess
no, that's great. But again, to the point, your business is not really about the PR or the social media aspect. You might use it as a tool. It's completely right, which is says something in and of itself, that you obviously believe in this day and age that real humans still matter, right? The actual crowds, the real showing up. It can't all be.
That's a good point.
It can't all be, what's the term for the
virtual.
Let me give you an example of why it matters so much. So you've heard of like the Squad, right? The far left members of Congress, right? So 2 of them got successfully primaried by moderate Democrats. So Jamal Bowman in New York, just north of New York City, I believe, and Cory Bush in St. Louis.
That's a fire alarm guy. Remember?
The fire alarm guy. Yes, correct.
There you go. Isn't it
and
funny?
Cory Bush is the defund the police while having her own armed security gal. Right. So, I mean, safe to say they've got their issues. So but I guess my point in that regard is that they both have millions of followers on social media, right? But they were both primaried by people who have 2,000-3,000 followers on social media, right? So they both lost the election to people who have like 1/1000th of their social media reach. So I'm not saying social media doesn't matter, because it definitely does, but there's a value in in-person activism too. Right. So I think they go well together.
Right. And people still have to actually vote. They actually have to do something, fill out a ballot, mail it in, or show up. So at least for now, I mean, God forbid we ever, I don't know, somehow connect social media, just somehow say on your social media who you vote for, and, this will be how we count the ballots.
Oh my God, that would be horrible.
Right. So anyway.
Well, I find, this is the question I wanted to ask you, and I find this really interesting. This idea, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, you have sort of equalized perception with reality, right?
Sure.
And so how do you, and this is related to my follow-up question of, like, why are you everywhere? Like, you're I mean, I see you on all the news channels. I see you on Fox and CNN. Like, what happened? And I know you've taken some heat from the Democrats. You've taken some heat from the Republicans. Like, all of a sudden you like burst out and you were talking about this idea. Because I know on our side of the aisle, which, Peter and I are both right of center, astroturfing has been talked about for years. Like, this is all just sort of a fake perception or a fake reality.
Yes.
And then, I would love for you to address that, and I would love to kind of understand kind of what brought you into the marketplace. So I don't want to use the word suddenly, but just like you were everywhere at once, and it's just
right. So it's a great question. So there are 3 reasons, maybe more, but three principal ones. So number one is there's misinformation that Crowds on Demand is engaged in unlawful activity, right? So it's imperative as a business owner when you're being accused of something that is not true by people who obviously have no idea, right? That you go out there and rebut it, because if you don't go and rebut something, essentially the rumor chain will grow, right? So it's important that I go out there and emphasize, hey, what we do when you see a riot, that is not us, right? If you see people breaking things, throwing rocks, right? There are people on the internet who falsely believe that that has anything to do with us.
Are there bad players that are participating in that, in this
business? 100%, 100%. But they're not people who are going out on TV, I'll tell you that. They're people who are in the shadows.
For sure. Is there any hope that this administration, it seems they're interested in trying to expose this, and
whether it could be, and I've offered my own help to them on that regard, right? Because I know exactly how because I know how to create anonymous networks to promote legal free speech, to protect people from cancel culture, for example. So a lot of our customers, especially under Biden, were conservative customers who wanted to fund causes that they agree with, but we had to create a web of networks in some cases to protect them from kind of having it known that it was them who was funding it. And that was to protect from a cancel culture mob demanding, that they, be fired or, taken down from a board seat or whatever, right? Like many, many wealthy conservatives funded initiatives through us under the Biden administration to protect themselves from cancel culture mobs, and anonymous free speech has been protected by the Supreme Court. So I know exactly how you do this to protect legal speech, but that's those same exact mechanisms that I've used can be used illegally. So it's imperative, but I don't think that the people running things exactly know how this works. So this is something that I've offered my services with. So maybe they will take me up on it.
Yeah. That will not make you many friends either, probably.
If you're engaged in illegal activity,
amen, brother. Yeah.
That's illegal. It doesn't matter. If it's right wing, I mean, what I've told them is I want to take down anything. It doesn't matter what the cause is. If it's violent, if it's law breaking, it should be unacceptable. Right. Because I love peaceful expression, right? I subscribe to Charlie Kirk's style, right? I wish more people on the left would engage in that manner too, of like, let's talk, let's hear you out, let's refrain from. I always liked that he never attacked people personally, even if it was some like overweight, blue-haired leftist who's kind of coming at him, right? He could have made this sort of easy dig at that person, right? But that wouldn't have actually won him any friends, right? That would have just probably further entrenched people in their own ideas. He would always try to convince people. So when Crowds on Demand does campaigns, I try to do it that way.
I mean, that's our, if we have a future, that's it, right? We got to be able to talk, be able to reason through
the rest of Sonny's question, which is because that was only reason number one.
Okay,
reason two is
there's two more.
Reason number two that you see me out there is to talk about the ethics of what we do. And we got into that a little bit in this program, is that part of it is I've gotten some maybe deserved bad publicity over the years for kind of stacking rooms with actors, right? And I'm trying to emphasize that we're doing things a little differently. It's not a matter of apologizing for things that have happened in the past, but more a matter of saying in this era where we're already so divided, I don't want to be part of the division. I want to be part of basically like impactful, common sense campaigns that have people who are genuinely interested. And sort of the last reason is to basically to explain my own worldview and to explain my own ideas on what's destroying this country, right? And in this era where it feels like over the last 15 years, 13 years that I've been doing this, the country has become more divided. That's not just my fault, but I want to figure out what are the causes of that and address them. And I actually have a few causes of them that I like to talk about on podcasts. Cable news tends not to let me talk about that part of things, and we tend to talk about part 1 and 2. But number one is poisonous food, right? That makes us crazy, that makes it impossible to sleep or to think clearly, such as McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all these kind of companies that claim to be woke, right? They're like, oh, well, we're murdering black people by basically telling them to drink this like soda like 5 times a day, right? And yet we are like, oh, well, we have 2 black women on the board, so don't come at us,
Yeah, that's a
right?
great point.
Like if you think about Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? Pepsi, they're like, oh, we've got a woman of color as CEO. I think that lady is still CEO, but it's like, yeah, but your product is killing them with diabetes, heart disease, cancer, right? Like, and those products, whether it's McDonald's, Pepsi, Coke, are marketed specifically to black communities, right? And to poor, and specifically, but also to poorer communities, specifically, right? So number one, we have that as a problem, right? Number two,
So you're saying you think that is a contributing factor to the divisiveness?
Correct, because the processed foods make us crazy,
Okay.
right?
That's an interesting
It's like
thought.
the Twinkie defense that they said. They make people crazier. It's if you're not sleeping and you're eating like that, you're gonna be crazy. And again, not to say that that's the exclusive reason, but you have social media, and we kind of got into that
For sure.
already. So I don't want to bore your audience with more of that, but yeah, social media. And number 3, which is sort of a symptom of this, is we have a major issue with dating in this country, where we have 2 groups that are the most likely to be single, which is educated, successful women and men who are struggling, right? Because women tend to like to date up, right? And women like to date up. Men tend to like to date down. Down, I mean, is referring to like money, success, whatever, right? And that's subjective, obviously. But what you have is one group, the educated, successful women, are like 90% on the left, right? The vice president would call them childless cat ladies, right? But on the other side, right, you have people like men without a high school degree, men kind of low income men, right? They're like 80-90%, Trump MAGA folks, right? Hillary would call them the deplorables, right? So remember that. So
We've done shows on both groups.
Yeah,
or commentary,
right.
I think.
So I think both groups have a lot of merit, but both groups are becoming more and more and more radical, and they are shaping a lot of the narrative. So whether you want to call it like the Groypers or whatever on the far right, and the kind of MSNBC far left folks on the left, what we need is to somehow make it, in this era of feminism, right, you're going to have some women who are more successful than some men, right? And as a result, we have to change the culture to figure out how women can wrap their head around dating a man who's not as conventionally successful as them, right? And if they don't do that, the only other solution is rolling back civil rights laws, which I don't support, right? Or I guess you could change the culture, and women could just voluntarily, essentially, not remove themselves from the workforce. But my point is, if that is not addressed, if people are not essentially dating and getting laid, people are crazy. I mean, look at the Middle East. Part of why people are so nutty, so many of these Middle Eastern countries, is they're not getting laid, right? Why is there gang rape in India? Because these men are segregated from birth, right? So they don't even know how to talk to a girl. So the point is,
we don't know how to have any controversial topics on our show.
We don't. But I am gonna tell you how we're changing the culture, Adam, because I don't expect you to know this.
You asked me for all the reasons. So
no. This is quite a bit, quite an insight. But one of the things that we at ABC do, we run the largest construction apprenticeship program in the state. Right? So all these men that have been left behind by higher education, we're encouraging them to come to us and to learn how to be roofers, how to be electricians, how to be plumbers, right? Because you can do unbelievably well financially in the trades, right? And I know it's sort of it's culturally hip now to talk about that. We've been at it for 50 years. We're celebrating our 50th year.
You guys aren't even new to this game, and good for you for doing that. I wish I could join, but I'm the least handy person imaginable. I wouldn't be
You're
much.
from LA, so we would expect that from you. So don't worry about that. But but I think your point about the men and the women, it really is an indication of the whole mess that liberals have made of higher education, right?
Yes, I
They
completely
have
agree.
destroyed higher education, and in that context, they've destroyed masculinity, right? Leftists, sorry, not liberals. We love liberals.
Right, I'm on a crusade to, classical liberals.
We're gonna stop saying liberals. We're gonna say leftists, and I mean, I can tell you, I have 2 daughters, and my daughters are well aware. Thank God they went through college and stayed right of center. But we have contempt in my house for the phrase toxic masculinity. Absolute contempt.
I agree.
Because I think the college system has decimated masculinity and has led to the kind of problems you're talking about. And it is literally, I mean, we are literally no different than the one-child policy. That's destroyed marriage and family formation in China. I think it's having the same effect here. And we have just demasculated, is that even a word? Well, whatever the opposite of emasculated is. Our men, or no, we have emasculated our men. And it's
That's a good word.
Yeah. And we culturally and socially are paying a price for that. And I completely agree with you that we have not come to terms with the social ramifications of that.
Apparently, though, toxic masculinity does not include men who make more than you or are better than you. The whole point of the single educated females.
Well, yeah, and this is sort of a contradiction, is that there's, on the one hand, there's feminism, and on the other hand, there's the biology that pushes
Great way of putting it.
A different way, right? I mean, I always get in trouble when I talk about this sort of thing, but it is. I actually am so glad that we're actually finally getting to an era where we can have these honest discussions about this, because I think for so long, even that discussion, even having this discussion, would be taboo. But I think it's important that we say, on the one hand, we want laws that give everybody equal rights, and on the other hand, we recognize the biological differences.
Yeah, but even that's a struggle.
Yeah, even that's a struggle.
We're having the conversation, but you still have people that will look you in the eye and be like,
"There's no biological differences."
Anyway,
right?
So, Adam, I want to convey a story to you, and maybe ask your advice on how this company, and tie it into ABC. We have multiple. So, but let me just speak of this company that actually was on the receiving end of one of these immigration raids. All right. And they're a company that, complies with the law. This is the way construction works. You were in Florida for a number of years now, which I think situated us in a little better situation. We had a state law that required, employers, above a certain size to have to put all their employees through the E-Verify, program. So, for a number of years before any of this came down the pike, Florida was kind of prepared for this. But unfortunately, in construction, oftentimes you're a sub of a sub of a sub, and you get down to where you're so small where either you don't have to do it, or you may be a company that's not quite as ethical, in terms of upholding these standards. So. The particular company got raided on a site, and was one of these ones that was in the news where 100 people or so were zip tied and and assessed and whatnot. And the interesting thing was when we as a trade association spoke with this company, the story started out with, it's been horrible. Because the biggest thing is, we're like, tell the public and our PR firms that we're complying with the law. We're perfectly open to the investigation and doing everything above board, at this site. They said, but all of our employees, some of our interns that have only been with us a week, they're all been threatened. They're all getting emails. They're all getting phone calls at home. They're being threatened with, their kids and wife being raped and killed and murdered. I mean, horrible violence, right? And of course, when I'm hearing this story, my first thought is, shamefully, oh my God, that's awful for the right of center to do that, right? Because you typically, you would associate a company that's, is being accused of having 100 illegals on the site with angering the right of center people. Like, what are you doing?
Like conservatives for like, how dare you hire these illegals?
Exactly. So I was like, I was appalled, that conservatives would be doing this thing. And I said that to the company, and the company was like, no, it's not the right of center people. It's the left of center people. They're actually saying, you called this raid on yourself to deport the people. Isn't that insane? Isn't that insane? It doesn't even make sense.
Because why would anyone even do that to themselves?
It doesn't, exactly. It doesn't make sense. But the fact is, they were like, even before we could, take any of this information down on our website, which I don't think really does any good in this day and age, because you have those crawlers that can go out there. But, all their company leadership and even their interns, all were, being doxxed and being threatened from the left. So,
interns, wow, that sucks.
So I'm curious what your advice might be to a company like this,
yes.
On how they can protect their, reputation and handle a situation like that.
I actually do consulting sometimes for businesses in this defensive situation. So, and the other defensive situation the companies will find themselves in is especially the ones that decide to voluntarily comply. So it's likely that the left is upset because maybe they think that they called them the immigration agents, or they are upset that the company even complied with those orders, which as if you could refuse to comply with, federal agents, right? But maybe they wanted them to fight it in some way in court or whatever. But number one advice, and I'm only sharing this to your members, is to try to make it a little bit harder to contact each one of your people personally. So part of it is you may be like, this type of company isn't even a political company, so you might be targeted regardless. So my advice is, number one, try to remove all your personal information. I mean, certainly of the interns. So there's some small companies that will have a bio of everyone who works at the company. You don't need that, right? You probably only need the bio of the CEO and maybe like whoever that, head of construction or, head of sales or whatever, but you probably don't need information about everybody who works there and their names, right? So that's number one. Number two, I promise you that I'm not getting sponsored by this, but there are companies that will remove your personal information from the web, such as Incogni. And so I advise using that as well for everybody. It's like a couple $100 a year. And that gets your info off the web.
Good.
Because something like this, like anybody could be susceptible to it.
That's right.
But yeah, this can happen. But my third piece of advice is it'll go away. They'll find their next target. So don't get too worried. Like, I mean, my company's been embroiled in so many controversies over the years that like my staff members will often be like, Adam, like, what's going on? Like, I'm getting a lot of calls about this. I'm like, just give it a few days. They'll move on. Like, it's like, I mean, I've been through so many of these things that like, it's not new for me. But for someone who may have not done this, it's hard to think about like, to think of it as like, oh, can I wait this out? But the answer is yes, you can wait this out. Just give it a few days, a week max, and they'll move on.
Great
mouth
advice.
breathers will move on, as they always do.
So Adam Swart, CEO of Crowds on Demand. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you really would like to point out or talk about?
Covered everything. I think we had a great conversation.
Me too.
As always, I always promise an uncensored conversation whenever I speak to podcasts. That's part of why I love to talk to podcasts. Like I do cable news a lot for talking points, but I love podcasts the best because I can actually sort of express my broader thoughts on where we're at as a country now. So I love it. And so thanks guys for having me on.
Thank you.
And by the way, and props to you guys for what you're doing in terms of the apprenticeships and making it easier for people to kind of get good jobs. And then because I think at minimum, the culture should change to say that if you're a woman who works in white collar, you should be happy to date a guy who works in blue collar who might well make more than you, right? But blue collar is only increasing in prestige as it should. So I think what you guys are doing is awesome.
And Appreciate that
see the
recognition.
results.
That's been a kind of a theme of ours as well. There's honor in all work, right?
Absolutely.
By the way, guys, you can see the results in when you guys have had power lines out, when you've had all these different problems in Florida. You guys have repaired them so quickly, and that's testament to the recruiting you guys have done, at least in part, to kind of recruit more people into those fields. So good job to you guys.
Many of those are what we call our participating employers. That's our second largest apprenticeship program, actually, the lineman program.
The lineman program.
In Florida, it's a pretty big deal.
The guys have gone to our school.
So good for you guys. And good for what you guys have done. Florida is a freaking amazing state. I mean, when you go to downtown Miami, you get the benefits of a big city, but it's actually safe. I mean, to think that 40 years ago you associated with Miami Vice, with drugs and immense violence, and now you walk the streets of Miami like completely safe. I was there recently. Not a fear in the world, even like quite late at night.
Yep, I agree with you. So anyway, this has been great. We really appreciate having you. So thank you for your insight, and I don't know.
Thank you for joining the show, Adam. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sonny. Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome. Well, Sonny, wow. I think it was spectacular.
That was a great conversation.
Now we can always tie this into our work, our business.
All connected.
Things we're doing, benefit to our members, and hopefully very enlightening. It certainly was for me.
Yeah.
Somebody who's come up through the political ranks in my life, not completely surprised, by the business he's in.
Yeah.
There have been for a long time people who are, you could hire to do the door-to-door canvassing and the phone banking and all that stuff. But with ABC and our mission to be the most influential organization we can be, I don't know, there may be some future role for this type of service in our political engagement. When we had the heat ordinance, for example, in Miami,
definitely could have hired them.
Definitely could have hired them. The ag community did an amazing job, with incentivized activism. Is that what they call it?
Incentivized activism, yeah.
So in any event, who knows? So hopefully you all enjoyed the show. We want to thank you for listening and honoring us with your time, and we look forward to sharing another episode with you next Friday.
Take care.